Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've set the tripod and camera to record a video inside my world headquarters in Capitol Hill in my apartment. Well, it's finally time for me to get around to catching up with some draft recap videos. This will be the first of 3 that I'll put out with me wearing my Calgary Stampeders jersey, going to recap the 2023 Calgary Stampeders drafts. And yes, there's 2 drafts that I'll recap, since the national draft came after the global draft. So both happened on the same day. I had a training camp back in May, but finally get around to making the video. But also, this ties in with a couple big trades that the Calgary Stampeders made, including who we got back in return for Bo, as in Bo Levi Mitchell, because we traded his rights to the Hamilton Tiger Cats for a bunch of draft picks, and a bunch of those draft picks didn't come into play until this draft. But before I pull up my notes and recap who the Calgary Stampeders selected and what they did with those picks that we got from the Hamilton Tiger Cats for Bo, if you want to follow along this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like and subscribe, and have my other social media links down in the description below. Like I said, the first 3 videos, as this is the Calgary Stampeders draft recap that I'll do. I'll have 2 Calgary Flames draft recaps. I realized I didn't get around to do the 2022 and 2023 drafts, so enough going on, and let's bring up the notes and let's recap who and what the Calgary Stampeders did at the 2023 drafts. And you could say this would be the first draft that Dave Dickenson was officially the general manager. Still had John Hufnagel as president, but in the 2023 season, the Calgary Stampeders had Dave Dickenson be head coach and general manager, and we could debate at the end of the season if that should still continue. So when it comes to the global draft, these are players that were selected or national from overseas, because the national draft are all Canadian eligible players. Each team actually only had 2 rounds in the global draft. It's gotten smaller over the years. So in the global draft, if you can highlight who was drafted first overall, that went to the defensive lineman Blessman, if I said the name right. He actually went to Hawaii for his school, but he is from America, Samoa. So that's where he is from, and he went to the Ottawa RedBlacks as they had the first pick in the global draft. But we're concerned with the Calgary Stampeders. They had the 6th overall pick in the first round, and the 2nd overall, or 6th overall pick in the first round, and in the second round they had the 15th overall pick. And who the Calgary Stampeders selected in the global draft in the first round, 6th overall, we selected offensive lineman Isaac Moore, and he went to Temple, and he is from Sweden. I've mostly seen him so far on special teams here and there, but mostly been on the practice roster. And then when it comes to the second round in the 15th overall, the Calgary Stampeders drafted linebacker Lino Schroeder, and you could probably figure out the untrained ear if that name sounds German. That's because he is from Germany, and actually an interesting name. They played for the Cologne Crocodiles. So to recap the global draft, the Calgary Stampeders selected Isaac Moore, offensive lineman, 6th overall. He went to school in Temple, and he's from Sweden. And in the second round, 15th overall, the Calgary Stampeders selected linebacker Lino Schroeder from Germany. He played for the Cologne Crocodiles. So that's the global draft. That's all we had. But now we will shift focus to the main draft, the national draft, where a lot of teams build their foundation on Canadian talent, and there were 8 rounds in this draft. However, the Calgary Stampeders, they actually did not have a second round pick this year, as they used it when they drafted TJ Rayam in the supplemental draft in 2022. Now, what's different about TJ Rayam is that he is the son of former offensive lineman Thomas Rayam, who actually was on the 2001 Calgary Stampeders team. But before we can go into the national draft, we can highlight the national draft that, just like the global draft, the Ottawa RedBlacks had the first overall pick, and the first overall went to offensive lineman Dante Bowl. He went to Fresno State, so that was the first overall pick in the national draft. But we'll highlight that 3 trades affected the draft for the Calgary Stampeders that went into play in this one, including the big one that after the 2022 season, the Calgary Stampeders decided it was time to move on from quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell and went ahead with Jake Maier. We can still debate if that was the right move, both in terms of how Maier is doing with the Calgary Stampeders and Bo Levi Mitchell in Hamilton, but it was a significant trade as it signified an end of an era for the Calgary Stampeders. And I could have made a video back then, but it was both various reasons, and the fact that it was just we traded his rights to the Hamilton Tigercats for a bunch of draft picks. So how the bunch of draft picks played out is, and it was conditional in terms of him signing, and he did sign a 3-year deal with the Hamilton Tigercats, so we got, like I said, a bunch of draft picks. So the Bo trade worked out is that Calgary got the 4th overall pick in the first round, so we moved up because of the trade. And in the 3rd round, we picked up the 22nd overall pick. And then in the 6th round, we picked up the 49th overall pick. So we had 3 draft picks that moved in the transaction. And then Calgary actually has a 2nd round pick in 2024. So the trade won't be completed until next year. And then going to the Hamilton Tigercats, we net picked up 3 draft picks, 2 in this draft and 1 in 2024. So going to Hamilton, they got Bo, and then they signed him to that 3-year deal that paid him, if I recall, it was $550,000 for 3 seasons. And then the Calgary Stampeders and Hamilton Tigercats swap picks in the 1st round. So Hamilton now will have the 6th overall pick, and then they got a 3rd round pick in 2024. So Calgary and Hamilton swapped 2nd round picks in this trade. So that was trade number 1, the biggest trade with Bo Levi Mitchell. The second trade, it was a little bit of a smaller trade in this one, and this was basically, if you recall, the start of the 2022 season. The Calgary Stampeders had Cody Grace, punter, injured for the first few games. So essentially what the Calgary Stampeders did is that we swung a deal with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and we got punter Jimmy Smith. And then ultimately, both Calgary and Saskatchewan exchanged a 3rd round pick in the 2023 global draft. That didn't happen because there was only 2 rounds. But Calgary gave up a 7th round pick in this draft, 60th overall. So essentially what wound up happening is that Jimmy Smith, we had him for a few games for the Calgary Stampeders, and then when Cody Grace got healthy and came back and resumed punting duties, we sent him back to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and he's mostly been around on the practice roster. So essentially, it was Jimmy Smith got traded back to the Calgary Saskatchewan Roughriders during the 2022 season, and the 3rd round pick in the global draft didn't happen, and it didn't happen until at the end of the season that was determined that those picks weren't going to happen. But also said the draft pick didn't upgrade to a 5th round pick due to the number of games, so we would have potentially given up a higher draft pick for Jimmy Smith. But essentially we gave up a 7th round pick to basically rent Jimmy Smith. And then the 3rd trade, this was interesting that the Calgary Stampeders, this essentially was nothing for both teams. And this player is significant because he did significant things in the NFL. But the 3rd trade, the Calgary Stampeders actually got a conditional 2nd round pick in this draft. We traded with the Montreal Alouettes offensive lineman Laurent Tardif. If you recall, we drafted him back in 2014. However, he actually never played in the CFL because Laurent Tardif didn't sign with the Montreal Alouettes before the draft. That's why that conditional pick was conditional. As I mentioned, we drafted him in the third round, 19th overall back in 2014. Well, at that same time, he was also drafted in the National Football League draft, 6th round, 200th overall exactly, by the Kansas City Chiefs. And he played with the Kansas City Chiefs from 2014 to 2021, including winning the Super Bowl 54. And actually, he is the first Quebec-born player, as I understand, to win a Super Bowl. And then he was with the New York Jets from 2021-22, and then essentially he retired from football. So essentially, this trade was just paper shuffling, as we did not get a conditional second-round pick in 2023 because he did not sign and play with the Montreal Alouettes. He never played in the Canadian Football League with the Calgary Stampeders, as he had more of a career with the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's the three trades that the Calgary Stampeders made in the offseason that had some stakes in with the this upcoming draft, mostly with the trade with Bo Levi Mitchell. So now for the actual draft itself. As the Calgary Stampeders, they had now the 4th overall pick in the first round because of the trade. And then they had 2 picks in the 3rd round because of the Bo trade, 22nd and 24th overall. And then they had a 4th round pick, 33rd overall, their own. And then they had a 5th round pick, their own. This was 42nd overall. And then they had 2 6th round picks, 50, 49, and 51st overall. I think that was also picked up from the Bo trade. And then we did not have a 7th round pick, as we traded that to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And then the 8th round, Calgary had 69th overall. Yeah, I know, 69th overall. Insert joke here. So ultimately, the biggest name that the Calgary Stampeders, you could say, got for Bo Levi Mitchell in the first round, 4th overall, the Calgary Stampeders drafted wide receiver Cole Tucker, and he went to school at Northern Illinois. So, and I'm going to say he has been in and out of the lineup this season, but he's also spent a lot of time injured. But I do see some promise with Cole Tucker and leading a young national receiving corps for the Calgary Stampeders in the future if he can stay healthy. So Cole Tucker, you can put that down as one of the assets that we got for trading away Bo Levi Mitchell. And as I mentioned, we forfeited the 2nd round pick because we had the 14th overall pick that was forfeited because we selected defensive lineman TJ Graham in the 2022 supplemental draft. And he's been in and out of the lineup as well for the Calgary Stampeders these last couple of years. And I always say he's significant for the fact that he is the son of offensive lineman Thomas Graham, who was on the Calgary Stampeders 2001 roster. I also know he played for the Edmonton Eskimos, and he tried his luck in the NFL. And then we picked him up when he was an NFL cut. And I think I remember he was like 6'7" and well over 340 pounds, if I recall. And I think we nicknamed him the T-Rex, because he was that huge, and he was a little bigger than Fred Childress. So getting back to the draft, in the 3rd round, 22nd overall, the Calgary Stampeders selected defensive lineman Queta Bohan from the University of Alberta, so he was up in school in Edmonton. And then another receiver that made some impact right away for the Calgary Stampeders. However, he's also been hurt. There's been a lot of receivers hurt for the Calgary Stampeders this year. 24th overall, in wide receiver Clark Barnes, and he went to school in Guelph. So he made an impact earlier for the Calgary Stampeders this season. And then going into the 4th round, 33rd overall, the Calgary Stampeders drafted offensive lineman Alexandre Marcoux, and he went to school in McGill. They definitely have a one well-run football program there. I think he's only been on the practice roster. I haven't seen much of Alexandre Marcoux with the Calgary Stampeders so far this season. And then in the 5th round, 42nd overall, the Calgary Stampeders select defensive lineman Ryan Letter. He went to McMaster out east as well. In Canada, I think he has been in and out on the lineup on defense. And then the 6th round, Calgary had 2 picks in the 6th round. As in 49th overall, the Calgary Stampeders selected tight end Sebastian Howard from St. Mary's. Haven't seen him much as well, and same with the other player, 6th round, 51st overall. We actually drafted a kicker named Campbell Fair from Ottawa, as he went to school in Ottawa. And then the last pick that the Calgary Stampeders had, as we traded away the 7th round pick going to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, so the 8th round pick, 69th overall, we had drafted fullback Lucas Robertson as he went to school in British Columbia. So to recap the 2023 draft class for the Calgary Stampeders, Cole Tucker, wide receiver, went 4th overall in the 1st round. He went to school in Northern Illinois. Then the 2 picks that we had in the 3rd round, 22nd overall, defensive lineman Plato Boeing he went to school in Alberta. And then 24th overall, we drafted wide receiver Clark Barnes from Guelph. And then in the 4th round, 33rd overall, Calgary Stampeders select defensive lineman Alexandre Marcoux. He went to school in McGill. And then the 5th round, 42nd overall, Calgary Stampeders drafted defensive lineman Ryan Letter. He went to McMaster. And then the 2 picks we had in the 6th round, 49th overall, we drafted tight end Sebastian Howard, went to school at St. Mary's. And 2 picks later in the 6th round, 51st overall, we drafted kicker Campbell Fair, went to Ottawa. And then the 8th round, to wrap up the class for 2023, 69th overall, we drafted fullback Lucas Robertson. The other part of the video I look at is the picks that we traded away. So the 6th overall pick that we sent to the Hamilton Tiger Cats as part of the Bo trade, they used that pick on offensive lineman Dayton Black, and he went to school in Saskatchewan. And then the 7th round pick that we sent to the Saskatchewan Roughriders for essentially renting Jimmy Smith for punting duties. That was 7th round, 60th overall. The Saskatchewan Roughriders drafted linebacker Thomas Nick, and he went to school in Manitoba. And I already mentioned we did not have a pick in the 2nd round because we used it on TJ Ram in the supplemental draft last year, that's something that football has. They have a supplemental draft, picking a player that you, after the draft, and you think what's the equivalent pick that you use. So we gave up a 2nd round pick. And then there was actually one player from the University of Dinos that got selected, and didn't happen until the 8th round. This happened 64th overall. It was defensive lineman Josh Heyer, and he got drafted by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So time will tell how this class will work out for the Calgary Stampeders. I'm already going to say we saw Cole Tucker right away in the lineup when healthy. Same with Clark Barnes. And I think Ryan Letter has played a few games here, and I have seen also Plato Boeing, but a lot of these players start off on special teams. And then same with on the practice roster. I did see Isaac Moore on the practice roster as well. So I'm going to still say the biggest name is Cole Tucker. That would really define the class for the 2023 Calgary Stampeders, and basically we still have 2 more picks that we swapped 2nd and 3rd round picks between Calgary and Hamilton when it comes to any trades a trade that we made for Bo Levi Mitchell. Actually, I'm recording this after the CFL trade deadline. There actually was no trades at all that happened in the trade deadline. So as I know, there was no other trades that Calgary Stampeders have made up to this point that would affect the draft in 2024. So that's my draft recap for the Calgary Stampeders. As this is the 2023 draft recap. Sorry it's a little late, but life seems to get in the way. So after this video, we'll go relook at the Calgary Flames. We'll shift from the gridiron to the rink as what the Calgary Stampeder Flames did in the 2022 and 23 draft. this is the Calgary Stampeders draft recap. So we'll close out for this video. So I would say if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like and subscribe, as mostly do Calgary sports content on my channel when I have time, but I've also trying to do some more vlogging on the go, so I enjoy doing that well, and kind of sprinkling some non-sports content as well to keep things interesting and fresh, and try a few other ideas, mostly in the Calgary area or when I've been on the road. And I have my second channel at Brett Hornby Shorts as well, so all my social links are down in the description below. So I just want to say, go Stamps go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, or watch me for the Calgary Flames draft recaps. I will make the videos for 2022 and 2023, so I'll see you then.